Hey, Atlanta, we are back for ATL Rise podcast. We're so excited to be back here with you today, where we're lifting up the concerns of the Atlanta community. Today, we have an amazing special guest with us, Trey Hutchins. He is going to be talking to us about his career pathway out here and Mableton, and he's going to tell us some amazing news and what he's been doing and how he's been influential in Mableton, yes. But before that, I just wanted to wish each and every one of you happy holidays. I hope you've been enjoying the holidays with your family, your friends, and getting ready for 2023. Trey, it's so great to have you here with us. Thank you so much for being here. You're a busy guy.
Yes, thank you.
It's hard to get a response from Trey, y'all. He is one of the most busiest guys out here, an advocate and just a leader in the community. And I've been blessed to be able to know Trey for a few months now through a program called Emerge that I've been a part of out here in ATL. I'll tell you guys about that another time. But today we're going to be focusing on your work and the things that you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
So I appreciate you being here
No,
today.
thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know Trey Hutchins, I want to formally introduce him by reading his bio. And afterwards, I want him to give a chance to talk a little bit about himself. So his official government name, y'all, is Leroy Hutchins.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, Leroy Hutchins, but known as Trey. He has been a resident of Cobb County for nearly 35 years. So we in the same county, attending grade schools in Cobb County and graduated from Pebblebrook High School in the Cobb County Center for Excellence in the Performing Arts in 1994.
Yes.
Trey, as he is affectionately known, serves the community which helped raise him, as well as his sons, Edward, Chemo, and Marlo. Got that right?
Marlon.
Marlon.
Yes.
Marlon. Got it. Awesome. And 26, 14, and 13 years old. So he is raising sons and this generation.
Yes.
He is an advocate for public schools and can be found serving our area, South Cobb schools in many capacities. Currently, Trey serves on the Cobb County School District Board of Education for Post 3, representing schools in Mableton, Austell, and Powder Springs.
Yes.
Trey serves on several boards to include Georgia PTA, Austell Community Task Force, South Cobb Council of PTA, Bryant Elementary PTA, Lindley Middle School PTSA, Community and Schools Marietta, Cobb County, as well as a state advisory panel member for the Georgia Department of Education for Special Education. Yes. Mm-hmm. Wow. I don't know how he does it, but he's going to tell us his secret. Trey is also a recent graduate of Leadership Cobb, South of 2022. He says, South Cobb is my village. There's no better place for me to raise my family than in the greater South Cobb. I love that. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody, Trey, tell us about yourself. Who is Trey Hutchins? Who are you, if you could?
I'm a dad. Mm-hmm. For the most part. Yep. That's why I spend most of my time focused on making sure that my young men have all the skills they need to be productive citizens.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what pushed me into some of these other spaces. And so, raising young men and making sure that they get a strong education, making sure that I was actively engaged in that process with the schools, which is how I ended up getting on board with Georgia PTA and the local PTAs that my children were a part of.
Nice.
I'm the PTA president at the middle school that my sons are in right now.
Wow.
I've been a council president where I've served 28 local PTAs in the area in South Cobb, from Mableton, Austell to Powder Springs. And that kind of propelled me to the space of now sitting on the Cobb County School District Board of Education, representing those same areas. And so... But it started with me just being a dad, just trying to make sure that my kids have everything I needed, that they needed rather, and then noticing that there was a gap and that I wanted to make sure that all kids had opportunities too. Yeah. And so I was very excited because my oldest son, he graduated from the same high school that I graduated from.
Oh my goodness!
And so,
wow.
and so just being
That's
engaged,
legacy right there.
Exactly. And so I know the education that I received and how it prepared me, and I was excited about bringing my children back to Cobb County for them to get the same level of education. Yeah. After doing so, I realized that there were some gaps, and it was an opportunity for me to help be a part of bridging that gap.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me involved. And so
wow, that's
now we're looking at just the schools in my area and making sure that our kids have all the opportunities that they need. But I also realized that the state of our schools is also the state of our community. And the same Mableton and the same Austell that I grew up in is not reflective now.
Wow.
And I recognized that it was time for the community to really step forward and say, hey, we need a little more. We need more attention around economic development and community development and making sure that Mableton shines. I mean, it's really a diamond in the rough.
Right.
Its location right off of I-20 where Six Flags is, our access to the Battery in Cobb County, our access to downtown Marietta. It's just a perfect location.
Yeah.
And so, and with all of those great things, we just were not shining.
Right.
And so that's kind of pushed me and propelled me to say, we need to start looking at what we need to do as a community to grow and to thrive and have a sustainable community. And we started talking to civic organizations in the area, the Austell Community Task Force. I still sit on that board, the Mableton Improvement Coalition. And there's other organizations out there that we all kind of came together and sat down and talked and said, well, what is it that we need to do?
Right.
Mableton Improvement Coalition was having meetings about cityhood for years.
Wow.
While I was away in Arizona and doing other things,
Right.
you know, these conversations were always happening, but no one ever moved forward with it. No one ever really investigated, was it the best move for Mableton? And at the time, it was just Mableton, 30126, that small carve-out.
That's my zip code, y'all.
Yep.
Don't be looking for me.
and I don't live in Mableton. I live in Austell, but the unincorporated Austell, 30168. I'm one street over from Mableton.
Wow.
But we all attend schools in Mableton, and everything we do is in Mableton. So I was like, well, you know, we're really one community. And we've always been one community.
Right.
And it kind of was the framework on how we decided to look at the greater South Cobb area.
Right.
And so after, you know, me working on some of the school stuff and working with my predecessor on the school board, I realized we had a plan for schools, but we needed a plan for the community. So I called a meeting, put it on Nextdoor and Facebook and said, hey, if you're interested in talking about the future of Mableton and South Cobb and Austell, come to the epicenter where we first met at, and let's talk about it. And we, you know, about 30 people showed up. Our commissioner at the time, who is now the chair lady, she came. Several members of the Mableton Improvement Coalition, just community people.
Wow.
And from that conversation, maybe about 8 of us started the South Cobb Alliance, which was is the grassroots organization that set out to determine if the greater South Cobb area could become a city and what that would look like.
That's such a story, and I'd love to hear more about like your upbringing in South Cobb.
Yes.
This is your home.
This is my home.
This is the place that you've had the privilege of growing up in and attending schools and having your entire life here, and now being able to have your children here and being a multi-generational community, which we talked about a few times. What is that like for you?
Yes, so I'm originally from Miami. I was born in Miami.
Wow.
But my family moved here. I think I started kindergarten in Miami, and then after that we moved to Georgia. And we moved to what is now the Battery, the Atlanta zip code 30339. It's in Cobb County, but it's listed as Atlanta. And I went to elementary school there, and then in middle school we built a house right behind Pebblebrook High School in Mableton. And I went through all of my middle school and high school years. I was in the performing arts. It's interesting because the first director, Earl Reese, he came to Pebblebrook the same year I came there. And so I'm like the first graduating class of what we now know as the Cobb County Center for Excellence in the Performing Arts at Pebblebrook. And got an excellent education there. Went on to Georgia State, finished up at AIU. And, you know, growing up in Mableton in that time frame, the late 80s, early 90s, everything we needed was on Veterans Memorial. So if you drive through there now, Bankhead Highway, for those that have been here a long time, you're like, wow, this looks like a ghost town. It's not really developed. A lot of warehouses, empty warehouses and things of that nature. But back then, we had Foot Locker. Literally everything we needed was on Bankhead Highway.
I would have never known that.
Oh, it was.
And I drive by there every single day.
It was flourishing. And then the East-West Connector was built. And so you can kind of see what happened after that. Big boxes, Home Depots and Lowe's and all those wonderful things that we all need concentrated themselves on that corridor.
Wow.
small businesses and things inside that Veterans Memorial corridor dried up. And so from there seemed to be a decline.
Wow.
And so over the course of, I look at the last 20 years, it's not the same. And it wasn't the same from when I grew up. So I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to thrive.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what started this. But it started from knowing where we were and what we could be. Right. And now we just need the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. It's such a compelling story. And for you to be one of the children of the community of South Cobb, to come up and then to be one of the masterminds behind us, to say, this has been at a standstill for so many years, we need to do something about it. You were that spark, essentially, that said, let's come together. Yes. Let's bring ourselves together and let's figure out what do we do for Mableton and how do we make it shine and revive it. That's right. And revitalize it. So
I grew up in Mableton. I also did real estate and property management for like 20 years.
Wow.
I actually worked in the same community as well, managing apartments and things of that nature. A lot of people that I went to high school with, they still live there. Their parents still live there.
Wow.
My parents still live in Mableton or Austell. Right. And so those were the first people that I reached out to. I was like, hey, what do y'all think about this? Do you think this is an opportunity we should pursue?
Right.
And as a result of those conversations and just starting to reach out to the community and find out, I'm in all the schools now. I'm talking to all the parents at the PTA meetings. Right. It started to be one of those conversations that I was bringing up all the time. What do you think about this?
Right.
After getting consensus, I realized that it was something we probably need to entertain.
Yeah. I love how you went to the people that know their community best, the ones that have been living there for so many years, and ask what they wanted. Most of the time, we don't see that happen,
right?
Especially when it comes to these type of development projects and these new big initiatives like this, turning a town into a city. But you went to the very people that live there that call it call this place home. So I love that you did that. But I also want to talk a little bit about your position in Post 3 and the things that you've been doing there. So I know that you're an education advocate.
Yes.
You talked about your trajectory, how you started out with your own kids' school and just being involved as a dad, and then how that just created opportunities for you to serve on the board. Yes. And now you're an elected official at Post 3. So tell us a little more about what that entails. We're laughing a little bit about, some of the challenges in terms of parents who are not always happy. They reach out to you and they're using certain choice language when they're reaching out and telling you what their complaints are. But what does that really entail in your position, and what have been some of the major challenges that you've been facing?
Awesome. It's funny. I was in church one Sunday and my pastor said to me, well, he didn't say it to me. He was saying it to everyone, really.
The congregation.
I need you guys to get involved. Get on your local PTA. PTA was farthest thing from my mind. Some of you are going to be the next school board members in your area. This was 6 or 7 years ago.
And your pastor is, by the way?
Bishop William Murphy.
Okay, Dream Center.
Church. Yep. And when he said it didn't click. I just received what he said. And, and my kids were struggling in school.
Right.
And my youngest has learning disabilities. So it was really more work because now I'm trying to figure out what I need to do to help better support him.
Right.
And I got on the PTA.
Wow.
Now, I remember my parents, my mom and my dad were PTA presidents of Pebblebrook High School.
Wow.
Decades ago.
So he just picked up the mantle, y'all.
Yeah, so I just kind of knew I knew what PTA was. And so I was like, yeah, let me get on PTA. And then I got on the PTA, and from there I started working with our school councils, and then I met other parent advocates, and we started working together to build up other parent advocates.
I love it.
I became a council president, oversaw 28 PTAs.
Wow.
Then I started working with our state Georgia PTA, and so I currently advise the current board for Georgia PTA.
Nice.
And then working with my school board member at the time, and just trying to be a voice for the community on what we need and how we can be a better community. Right. My son again was going to Pebblebrook High School where he graduated, and so I saw firsthand how Pebblebrook had changed since I had been there, but
you were there.
How there was still much more need there,
right.
and.
Right.
So I was able to engage other board members. One of my colleagues on the Board of Education happens to be one of my coaches from from several decades ago at Pebblebrook High School.
Yeah,
I don't want to tell his age or mine, but he was my coach in high school, and so it was good that I could talk to my board member, but I could also talk to other board members, and started building relationships. And from there, when the time came, the opportunity was available. I ran for school board unopposed, and now in year 2, getting ready to go into year 3 of my first term. And so, but yeah, it was all about receiving a word first, acting on it, and really trying to just make a difference for my children, but then realized it was bigger than that. It wasn't just my kids. And so when I put that focus that I was going to really be a voice for all kids, that's when it changed. And for parents. Again, parents may not necessarily always have the right words or how to express what their concern is. And it was funny. I had this conversation with a district leader. He was saying, he was mocking, but he was making a joke. How do you deal with the people? And, when they come at you cursing, well, they really don't come cursing at me. They really are coming to me for support.
Right.
But I
understood, like the way you look at that.
But I understood what it was. I understood where the disconnect was, and they did not have the language to really advocate for the child. But I'm patient enough to hear you, and then give you the resources and the tools to better advocate for your child, and then also, from my perspective, hear what you said, and then take that to the people that need to hear it to better support your child. Because I don't care about all that. I care about the child, and I care about making sure we give the child what they need to be successful. Because as I age, I recognize that these children will be those that are making decisions for us. And I want to make sure that they receive the absolute best education so that they can make the best decisions for those of us that won't be making decisions in the future.
That's right. And I don't think we think about that enough.
We need to focus on that.
Yeah.
And so that's what drives me now. So when parents call me, I hear them, I listen to them, and oftentimes that's a lot of it. Just hearing and recognizing, and then give them some tools on how to be successful. Then I take it and I help navigate the process as well through the system. I like being the connector. It's actually probably one of my better fortes.
I love it. Can you give some advice to parents that may be listening right now?
Yes.
That may not have the language to advocate for their kids. They may be frustrated, and they may not have great Trey Hutchins where they are, right? Because those people may not be able to hear them the way you hear your parents. What would you say to those parents that want to advocate for their kids, but they don't know how to do it? They don't know the language. What advice would you give them?
Documentation is key.
Okay.
Always, always, always document. If your child comes home today and says, someone's picking on me at school. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Someone says someone's picking on me. Immediately write it down. Send it to the teacher. Hey, my child said such and such is happening at school. Did not necessarily tell me the child's name, but can you just be aware that someone is picking on my child or making my child feel some kind of way? The documentation is key. Because oftentimes when it gets to the point of there's a fight, it has escalated to a fight, both children are now going to be suspended, expelled, or whatever the case may be. And as a parent, you're trying to say, well, my child was being bullied. But there's no documentation of it.
You haven't documented it.
You have to be the person that hears what the child is saying and then move on it, document it. Because the child doesn't necessarily know how to self-advocate either. But, I tell my sons in situations like that, I need you to go back and tell the teacher. Now, I'm texting the teacher or emailing them at the same time this is what my son has said. But I also make sure that they go back and explain to the teacher what transpired as well. So that there's a track record of what transpired. So that when it's time to offer discipline or corrective action or support for the child, we'll know how to apply it based on all of the everything laid out on the table. And I think that's where we miss the mark a lot. We don't necessarily document. If your child is failing, why? And how long? And if I'm looking at grades at least once a week. If grades aren't in the system, I'm emailing the teacher and say, hey, when are you going to put these in? Because I need to know where my child is.
If you see a grade where they failed, you need to contact that teacher immediately.
And I even tell my children, hey, let's talk about these grades. I need you to go back. Again, I'm emailing, but I want you to go back and say, hey, how can I do better on this? Or is there a way I can retake this? And because my children do have IEPs and, extra support, they're entitled to that. So I make them go back and ask, hey, I need more time on this. I wasn't able to finish this. Or, can you explain this more to me? That way, everyone is engaged. I want my kids to be able to self-advocate, and that's the tools I give parents. don't just do the work for them.
Right.
Make them go do it as well.
Yeah.
Make them follow up as well. When they
Right.
come home, hey, did you talk to your teacher today? Sometimes maybe 2 or 3 days. Dad, I forgot. In the morning before they leave, did you talk to your teacher? Make sure you talk to your teacher today. Turn in all that late work today.
Right.
You know, I'm on top of it. We have to get engaged.
I love that.
We have to get engaged.
You're engaged in every part. And, you know, it's always interesting. I love all our parents out there, but it's always interesting how parents get to the end of the school year and they're like, why did my kid fail? It's like, but what were you doing Monday through Friday for 9 months when your kid was in school? Were you checking their work? Were you checking in with their teachers? Was all of these things happening?
Yeah.
Sometimes we put the weight on teachers.
Yes, it's a
we
partnership,
expect.
and we have to.
I love that.
We have to build that partnership again.
Right.
We have to get that back, and because there's a culture and climate right now where it's like us against them, and I don't really like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, because I believe in holding teachers accountable too. You
Right.
know, like if now we're 9 weeks in and you haven't contacted me or sent me an email to say, hey, your child's not doing too well.
Right.
What can we do to better support them?
Right.
I have an issue with that as well.
Absolutely.
But in the same token, I'm taking responsibility. And then, you know, if I look and see that my child is slipping, you know, I go in and say, hey, what's going on?
Right.
You know,
Right.
But it's going to take teamwork.
Yeah.
It's going to take teachers
Right.
really being invested and also parents taking time. I know it's difficult. I know we got a lot going on.
Right.
But we must take at least 5 to 10 minutes once a week to just kind of regroup and say, hey, where we at with this? And I don't take my kids' words for anything, you know.
Be like one of those daddies, like, no, you said it to, you know, one of those
Let me
parents,
check too.
they never check with the child, but they're out there cursing the teachers out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Poor teachers, sometimes what they're saying is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me
We don't
inspect
wanna
what I
fact
expect on both for all parties.
Right.
And then we can come together and as a team,
Yeah.
you know, decide on how we move forward. So
I love that.
Yeah.
What are the challenges that kids in Cobb County are facing? I know that's so
Yeah.
generic, but in the education system, what have you noticed in your role as the major challenges to be?
Yeah, I'm in a cohort of school board members from around the nation. We're part of school board partners, and so everywhere from California, Washington to Miami to
Wow.
just school board members from all over. And we're all talking about what are some of the challenges we see, and it's pretty standard across the board. Whether it's
Wow.
Cobb County, Atlanta, DeKalb, you know, Miami, it doesn't matter. We're seeing. Of course, because of COVID, there's a lot of unlearned learning. And so I don't want to call it gaps. It's just that
Right.
we weren't teaching and kids
Right.
weren't learning.
That's what
So
that's exactly
we have
what was
that
happening.
that where we have to kind of close that learning gap.
Right.
That's a big piece of it. But there are some groups that were not learning before COVID. So this has kind of exacerbated that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Reading is a big thing right now. Just literacy across the board. Kids are just not reading. They're not reading on what we consider to be grade level.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge. But we're also seeing an uptick in discipline across
Yeah.
the board. From Miami to Washington State, New York, down to Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
We're seeing an uptick in discipline. And I know it has a lot to do with COVID and being isolated and now,
Right.
you know, getting back into socialization. That has a lot to do with it. But
Right.
also the group of kids that we're seeing a lot of the challenges with middle school. You know, they went to elementary school
Right.
when COVID started.
Oh, yeah.
Now we've kind of pushed them in the middle of their pubescent years
Right. Oh, yeah.
into a new environment with a lot of freedom. You're going from class to class and a lot of socialization.
Yeah.
And it comes with some challenges. And so as educators, for me as a governor, let me not use the educator perspective, making sure we have policies in place that don't
Right.
necessarily just penalize children and throw them away.
Right.
But
right.
we have policies in place that allow us to look at the child and what's going on, to examine, is it an effect of trauma?
Right.
Or, you know, did he eat today? Or
Yeah.
did they not eat today? There's a lot of different things
Absolutely.
going on as to
Right.
why this transpired. So just making sure we have resources so
Right.
that we can just kind of get down to the nitty gritty and not necessarily throw children away based on bad discipline.
Right.
Or,
Right.
But make sure that we have tools to better support them to make better decisions.
What does that look like for schools in Cobb not to throw kids away and to create those tools that they need to be able to support them,
Okay.
whether it's overcome trauma or if it's overcome whatever they're going through in their developmental stage, and to support them to the next level? What does it look like?
And we're probably going to see some of this in the legislature this year, but counselors. they need people to talk to.
That's right.
I'm at a board meeting. A student from Pebblebrook came to the board and talked to us, and I love when our students come and talk to the board directly because we're serving them and what they're receiving.
Right.
And she said, I don't need a guidance counselor who's going to help me make sure that I graduate on time.
Right.
Like, that's good, and I have that, but I don't have anyone that I can talk to. If I'm having a life issue, and whatever that life issue is for that child, I don't have anyone there that I can talk to because they're focused on my schedule.
Right.
And as a result of that, I've reached out to our superintendent and said, hey, let me have 2 counselors at Pebblebrook this year, additional counselors. They won't focus on necessarily, the letters A through M and making sure that this group of students graduate on time and all that stuff, but let them just focus on helping children navigate high school at this point.
Yeah.
And we did that. We're trying it out. We're test piloting this thing. And so my hope is this year, as a result of the results from that, because I want to make a decision based on the data.
Right.
How can we bring in at least 2 additional counselors at all high schools? And I know, and that's going to take an investment on our school district to do that. Is that the right investment? And but I want to make sure that we're supporting the social emotional well-being of children.
Yeah.
That they have someone that they can talk to and help them navigate this new normal.
Yeah,
and so that's what those are some of the things that I'm looking at and some of the things that I'm working on to help support students and give them the supports that they need. Hopefully we'll have enough to, do 2 or 3 counselors at a school and maybe work on middle school.
That is music to my ears. That's exactly what my agency does.
Oh, awesome.
We provide school counseling to children in the school during the school day because that's the time that kids feel the most disconnected.
That's right.
They're feeling the most unsafe. That's the time when a lot of the trauma that they're dealing with, those triggers are coming out.
The triggers are happening
and
there.
so they need counselors in the school. And that student is brilliant. She is absolutely right.
Yes.
So she needs a guidance counselor, yes, for academics, but she needs someone to talk to. Our kids need someone to connect to during the day.
That's right.
So it's congratulations to you for even making that call to bring in 2 counselors into that school. And I think it's brilliant to place counselors in each high school. If you can pull that off and if you need our support, definitely let me know.
I will.
Because that's exactly what we do. We've been doing it up in New York City for 10 years.
Okay.
We work with a number of schools out there, just making sure kids have someone in the building. And our counselors are doing crisis intervention with students, loss and bereavement counseling, breakup, healthy, unhealthy relationship, intimate partner violence, you name it. They're on the scene doing it. So, and this is the type of services, like you mentioned, social-emotional learning. Because if a kid basic needs are not met, they're not going to try to learn anything in the classroom.
That's correct.
It's something you said. If they didn't eat that day, are they really going to try to sit there and learn this new concept? No.
Yeah.
They're not interested. They need a meal.
See how we connected? Look at this. Look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I love the work that you're doing with Post 3. And I know some people are probably, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask about what your plans are in terms of the next level in your career. Have you thought about that yet?
I am where I need to be.
Okay.
And I'm going to stay focused because a lot of people ask me that. Now that we have the new city of Mableton, everyone's like, are you running for mayor? Are you running for city council?
Right.
I'm like, no, I didn't. I didn't do the work for that. Not for me, per se. I did it so that we would have an infrastructure to support the community.
Right.
And I'm going to support the schools.
Yeah.
And I think if schools are supported and the community is supported, we're rising together.
Yes.
And that's really the focus. So
Love it.
the school is where I want to
love it.
continue the work of advocating and making sure we have what we need in our schools.
I love that. I had a question. This is a little off my script, but my daughter, and we talked about this before. My daughter goes to, she's in a Christian school on Atlanta Road, and she's now looking in middle schools. So we've been, I think I may have talked about this. For those of you that listen to these podcasts all the time, please don't stone me, because it's probably the 5th time telling this story. But it always comes back to me because it's a defining moment for me.
Yes.
But so she's in the process of looking for middle schools, and so we've been looking at some of the top middle schools up in this area, Metro Atlanta. And so Westminster, one of the schools that I'm sure you know, these schools love it, Pace, and amongst others. And so I'm going to one of the school tours one day. I was blown away at just the way the campus looked. I was like, this looks like a mini Harvard University.
Yes.
Legit, hands down. And I was like, wow, they're training their kids to be the top, the most prominent. They're training them to be scholars and to be the ones that control the wealth of society. They're training them to be entrepreneurs, to be presidents.
Yes.
And then you look at our public schools, and it is such a contrast. What are they training our kids to be?
We're providing the basic education.
Yeah.
So this is why I say that the parent engagement piece is huge. Every school should have a principal advisory council or school council or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that is the parent group that engages with the principal to help frame the culture and climate of that particular building.
Right.
You know, what are we going to be known for? STEM or, you know, performing arts or IB education. Those conversations happen within the community.
Right.
And we have to be very vocal and very direct and intentional about what we want to see in our area schools.
Right.
Because, again, everyone's not going to have the ability to afford private education.
Right.
And
Right.
so we have to demand excellence even in our public schools.
Absolutely.
And so so I'm an advocate for that. Like even now I'm saying, hey, this particular cluster of schools, we want to focus on just STEM. From elementary to high school, we want that critical thinking. We want some of that project-based learning. We want the STEM. We have the arts. We want that permeated from the beginning to the end so that when our kids leave here, we know that they are prepared for the future.
Right.
But that comes with parents coming to the table and saying, hey, what's the STEM plan for this year? Do I need to ask my job to sponsor something?
Right.
You know, it's a community conversation.
I love that.
And but yes, we can always go out and find some of these great things, and they're out there. But you can also demand that same thing in your local schools, your local public schools. We have Cobb County has a lot of high performing schools. You know, at the same time, that community has supported that school. That's why it's one of the best.
Wow.
And so that's why I encourage every school. I don't care where your child is at. Get involved, get engaged, find 2 or 3 other parents. It don't take a lot of people. 2 or 3. That's all you need.
2 or 3 people.
That's all you
true.
need.
Yeah.
And you can really change the trajectory of that school with just 2 or 3 people advocating for the forward movement of that school.
Right. I love that. And that brings me back to earlier where we talked about what Mableton Yes. I think you said you put the, for those of you that don't know what Mableton Yes is, can you give a little bit of
Mableton
history
Yes was
behind
the ballot referendum for the proposed city of Mableton, and we helped we lobbied, and we also really just kind of advocated for people to vote yes for the city of Mableton.
Right.
And so it was like a big campaign committee. And so yeah, we did it. We did pass. So there will be a city of Mableton. I believe city council is about to come into play in the next first quarter of 2023. But yes, that was our focus really.
Amazing. And it only took a small group of people. You said you put it up on Nextdoor, and maybe about 30 people.
30 people showed up. 7 people were part of the core starting out group.
Right.
Then it dropped to 4.
Wow.
And then it was just 4 of us. But we carried it all the way through.
That is something. 4 people carried it through. For how many years?
Since 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. And diligent. One of our original steering committee members is our county chairlady. I mean, not chairlady, our county commissioner.
Right.
So, you know, she pulled off and she began doing her work on the county level. The focus is really, from a school perspective, I'm going to do my part.
Right.
Our county commissioner is going to do her part. And then city council is going to do their part.
Right.
And between the 3 of us and our state reps, all of us working together, we are looking that Mableton will be the pride of Cobb County.
I love that. I love
It's
that.
a diamond in the rough.
That's exciting news, and I get to be a part of it because I am a Mableton resident,
Yes.
y'all.
Yes.
Tell us what the vision is for Mableton, whatever you can share.
Yes.
What does that vision look like?
Based on what we campaigned on and what we engaged the community on for the last 4 or 5 years, we really want to focus on code enforcement. We have a ton of code on the books. I mean, you know, from what trash, you know, how high your grass should be, the trash can can't sit on the curb. We have a ton of, you know, do's and don'ts and all that kind of stuff. We really need more enforcement of that.
Right.
And not necessarily that it's punitive, but more education.
Right.
You know, that you should always cut your grass. Your grass shouldn't get that high. And just putting a notice on your door and saying, hey, call this number. We're going to walk you through the process and what the expectation is.
That would have been
not
nice.
necessarily fining you and, you know.
Right.
It's not about being punitive. It's all about education because a lot of people just don't know.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we need more enforcement to educate the community on how we're going to make this community shine and look great.
Yeah.
The second part of that is zoning. No one knows best what Mableton should have, except for those of us that have invested our time, efforts, and energy in making that home.
That's right.
And so having local representation to decide what land use is important for the community, I think that is probably one of the biggest things that Mableton is going to use to really make us shine.
Right.
You know, we have a lot of land that can be developed still.
Oh, yeah.
And so making these different communities of interest, one of the things we talk about is improvement districts, because the whole focus is to improve the area. Six Flags is in the city of Mableton.
Right.
And but I don't know if the last time you've been to Six Flags, I'm sure there's not a hotel you would stay in around there.
No.
Well,
I
those
live
are
down
some
the
of
block,
yeah.
but...
Well, there's some improvement that needs to take place in that area.
Right.
Like when I go to Orlando and I get off the plane and I'm on my way to Disney or Orlando to Universal Studios, I know where I'm at.
Oh yeah.
You drive off the exit and you know where you are. It's not the same for the Six Flags area. And Six Flags is one of the biggest entertainment parks in the Southeast.
Wow.
We're going to change that. We're going to make that an entertainment area. We have the Epicenter where Bishop Del T. Bronner and Word of Faith Church have built this beautiful facility right at the mouth of Six Flags. And now it is time for the next step. Let's get some hotel collateral, some restaurants, and really make this a place where people want to come and stay and spend their money, enjoy all of the things that we have for them to enjoy. It's going to come. Right. That's going to be part of that vision. We have an amphitheater in Mableton. We have what I like to call an art district, the Mable House and the Mableton Art District. Right. There's some room for improvements around Veterans Memorial. We talked about that earlier, and making sure that we can build that back up. Right. Some of the other improvement areas, the East-West Connector. Right. Again, it was 30 years when it was built. Big box retail has a 30-year life. Now we're starting to see some vacancies in some of those big plazas and shopping areas, and we're seeing some redevelopment of housing coming in and being intertwined with those big plazas and things like that. We know that it's time for redevelopment. Right. And so while we're trying to redevelop Veterans Memorial, we need to also make sure that we have intentionality around making sure that the East-West Connector has the same love and support so that it doesn't look like Veterans Memorial in 5-10 years. Right. We have Cobb Hospital, Wellstar, right there. We want to make sure that we're supporting Cobb Wellstar and making sure that it continues to provide world-class service to all of Cobb County. So making sure that we have enough medical space around there. So talking about zoning and land use and making sure that we have put a plan in place, a plan, and it's really about a city plan to make sure that every entity that we are supporting has what they need for future growth and development. Right. Cobb County is expected to have over 1 million people in the next 10 years, I believe? Wow. Well, we got to make sure our infrastructure can handle that.
Can support that.
Exactly. Right. And that's what this is about, making sure that the southern portion of the county has the infrastructure ready to really support what's going to happen in the next 15, 20, 30 years from now. Wow. So improvement districts, code enforcement. We've talked about waste management and what that looks like. And while I don't know what that looks like, we do want to make sure we improve that service. Oh, yeah. With bulk
Needs
pickup.
A lot of help.
Yes, bulk pickup, recycling, just those things that we currently don't have. Right. Making sure that we can offer that to the people of Mableton. And lastly, to start out, parks and recreation. Yeah. We have several recreational centers, but not a lot of programming at those recreational centers. Like we're on winter break now. Right. And it's practically closed until school starts back up. Wow. And even when school is going, there's not much going on at the rec centers in our area. So we want to make sure that we are intentional about bringing in programming to help support children educationally. So they're getting it the 8 hours they're in the building, but then between parents getting home, what are they doing? Right. Well, let's provide some more opportunity for them to, whether it's STEM programs, whether it's basketball leagues, football leagues. We want to make sure that kids have what they need to stay out of trouble. Right. And continue to grow and help build our community.
I love that.
So those are what we'll start off with.
But that sounds like the 20-year plan.
And it probably is. It probably is. It especially when you're talking about redevelopment. Right. It's not overnight. It
takes time.
Yes, it's not overnight, but you have to start with a plan. And this city allows us to start with a plan, look at our revenue, and then based on that, determine how we move forward.
I love that. I am excited to be a part of Mableton.
Me too.
And to be a resident of this amazing city that's going to burgeon, grow, and be one of the I think I'm just claiming it, one of the best cities in Metro Atlanta.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Would you leave some advice to the residents of Mableton that may be feeling a little, on the opposite side or the opposite end? Some advice or anything to sort of calm or comfort them.
You know what? Change is difficult for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And even myself, while I am very optimistic because I can see the long-term benefits of this, I also know that change can be scary.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Am I going to be taxed so much that I'm going to have to move out of my home that,
Right.
We built 30 years ago? And these are just questions that we have.
Right.
But the reality is a community is about common unity and a common interest.
That's right.
And being a part of the conversation. And I think I want to encourage everyone to get engaged and get involved,
Right.
so that you can, number one, have your fears kind of dispelled, because a lot of what I'm hearing is just misinformation.
Right.
A lot of misinformation
part.
out there, and that right there, if we can dispel a lot of that,
Right.
a lot of the fears will be calmed down.
Yeah.
But then we can start focusing on these plans, the vision for the future, and having people engaged and being a part of that process.
Right.
I know in January we're going to have several town halls to just ask the community to be engaged. What does waste management look like for all of us? We all come to the table and we all talk about it. What does
Right.
parks and recreation look like?
Right.
We have several passive parks. There's no plans for them for the immediate future, but we can decide what the parks are going to look like.
Right.
That's our decision now, and what
Yeah.
we want to name it, and what we want to have there for our kids. That's the fun stuff,
Yeah.
and I want the community to come, be a very vocal part of that,
Right.
and be engaged. And we're really, it's like when you get a new home, you get to decorate it and you get to paint it your colors you want and all that kind of stuff. That's what Mableton is now. And we have that opportunity as a community to come together and really say, this is what we want our home to look like.
Wow.
Yeah. I want
love
restaurants and, all these
Yes.
things that we have to
need
go to
some
other
new
cities.
restaurants over there.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, I'm tired of eating the same thing when I don't want to cook.
Yeah, and then I don't want to spend money outside of my community either.
That's right. Absolutely. And I try to stay within, but I tell you,
Yeah.
it's the same old few little restaurants. I said I
Yeah.
need another taste now.
Yeah.
So I'm excited
So
about this.
the time is now.
The time is absolutely now, and change is it's scary.
It's scary,
because
but
sometimes we perceive change as loss,
Yep.
and that's why we don't want it. But change in order to really gain, you got to lose something.
That's right.
And so that's exactly what we're
and let's
gaining.
do it together.
Yep, absolutely.
Do it together.
And when we do it together, it's less scary.
That's right. That's right.
And don't fight it.
That's right. That's right. That's what we are. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
I'm
So,
excited too. Well, Trey, it's been an honor.
Yes.
Being with you tonight and hearing all about the great work you're doing
Thank
as a
you.
dad,
Thank you.
As an elected official,
Thank you.
you might even run for president one day. I don't know.
Oh, I don't want that.
Well, you never know.
You never
well,
know.
Look, Obama didn't want it.
You're right.
Yeah,
but
he didn't want it for a long time.
Yeah.
And ended up doing it and was a great president. But you're amazing.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all that you do, the sacrifice you make, and
Thank
just
you.
for being here tonight and sharing with us all the work. And we're looking forward to partnering with you. Whatever
Yes.
you need from
Yes.
iRaise, consider us a part of your support system.
Awesome.
We're out here. We're new in the area.
Okay.
But we are 150,000% committed to our youth and our families.
Awesome.
So you can count on us, and we
Awesome.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching and for tuning in today. We're really excited about all the work that's going on out here at Metro Atlanta. As you can hear, we have some iconic figures out here doing great work, such as Trey Hutchins. We will be back next week, so stay tuned. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to all of you. We'll see you in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you.